In Happy, Sexy Millionaire, Stephen Bartlett calls out the myth that you can find happiness, love, and wealth if you just follow 3 simple steps and a hack or two. Bartlett says the internet, social media, and algorithms have dazzled us into believing that we can have the perfect life if we just chase the right dreams, a lie that pulls us off the path of genuine contentment, meaning, and fulfillment. Bartlett, a social media mogul and public speaker, was born in Botswana to a Nigerian mother and British father, and was raised in a predominantly white area in England. A university dropout, once so poor that he scavenged for food, Bartlett founded the successful internet company Social Chain at age 21 and was by all objective accounts living the dream. But when wealth and fame didn't bring him happiness, Bartlett reevaluated his priorities. He wrote Happy, Sexy Millionaire to warn others against chasing false idols and to encourage them to find contentment and success by following their true path. Our guide discusses Bartlett's advice in 2 parts. Part 1. Reclaim yourself and your life. Part 2. Bartlett's best practices for pursuing happiness and success. First, what is a happy, sexy millionaire? Before reading this guide, it's helpful to understand Bartlett's definitions of happy, sexy, and millionaire, because he doesn't use the terms literally. Early in Bartlett's life, he thought if he were a sexy millionaire, he would be happy. When he later learned the true meaning and source of happiness, Bartlett clarified what each term actually means. According to Bartlett, happy is an internal feeling of contentment in your life as a whole, not a momentary mood in a snapshot in time. Sexy is the reason you want to be sexy. In other words, so that you can find love, have love, and be loved by another for who you are. Millionaire is a metaphor for success, a subjective measure that's based on your personal goals and what's most important to you. With these definitions as a foundation, Bartlett argues that contentment, success, and love come when you 1. Understand that you are good enough, all on your own. 2. Are true to yourself and pursue goals that are meaningful to you. Short form note. Bartlett covers happiness and success extensively in this book, but doesn't go into great detail about love. Though he doesn't say it explicitly, we can infer that having an internal feeling of contentment, feeling good about and being true to yourself, and pursuing what's meaningful to you are all prerequisites to experiencing genuine love. New section. Part 1. Reclaim yourself and your life. Bartlett says that chasing after inauthentic, meaningless goals has left us lost, and that to feel content, successful, and loved, we have to first find ourselves again. He argues that society has brainwashed us into wanting things that were never our goals in the first place, and we then feel inferior when we don't achieve them. In this first section, we'll examine how warped societal pressures have led us astray, and how you can find your way back to your true self by pursuing goals that are actually meaningful to you. Know that you're enough, even when society tells you otherwise. Bartlett says that fulfillment is something that exists within you here and now. It's not some elusive thing you achieve when you reach a certain level of success. He argues that we're born enough, but society bombards us with messages that say we're inadequate and need to fix ourselves. For example, corporations sell us things they say we need, schools and universities tell us we have to ascend to a more elevated level, and social media influencers say that we should do what they do to have a better life. Short form note. In You Are a Badass, Jen Sincero agrees with Bartlett's assertion that you're born enough and takes it a step further, arguing that you were born, and will always be, a badass. Sincero contends that the universe loves you unconditionally, wants you to see in yourself what it sees in you, and wants to give you everything you desire, including happiness. She says that we all get to choose our perception of reality, and that when you have insecure moments, you should try looking at yourself from the perspective of someone who admires you and sees your potential and talents. Doing this will counter your negative feelings and make you your own biggest fan. Bartlett argues that when we compare who we are, what we do, and what we have to other people, it makes us miserable. This is because we don't know that anything's wrong with us until we see other people who appear happier, more attractive, more satisfied in their relationships, and more successful than we are. But he says nothing in the world actually has value until you assign meaning to it and compare it to something else. So when you compare yourself to someone who appears more successful than you feel insecure, worthless, and powerless. Conversely, when you compare yourself to people who appear less successful than you experience a temporary feeling of pleasure that disappears. It's important to note that pleasure, a fleeting feeling, is not the same as the ongoing state of contentment. Short form note. Bartlett discourages comparing yourself to others but doesn't go into detail about how to stop doing it. Experts say you can step out of the comparison game by first acknowledging that you're engaged in it. Recognizing that comparing yourself to others is a no-win game because there will always be someone smarter, funnier, better looking, or richer than you, prevents you from getting trapped in it. You can also exit the comparison game by understanding that while it's nice when someone pays you a compliment, that doesn't mean you're better than anyone else. Finally, you can free yourself from comparison by being yourself and doing things you care about, which will bring you true contentment. It's easier said than done. Bartlett says that even though comparing ourselves to others is meaningless, it's nearly impossible not to do it. This is because our brains can't rationally process all the information that social media is blasting at us like a fire hose. He argues that our brains aren't rational to begin with because they're driven by hormones, impulses, survival instincts, and emotions. These drivers regularly lead us to make reactionary decisions and chase goals that aren't important. Our inability to think clearly about what truly matters to us, he says, makes it nearly impossible to live a fulfilling life. Short form note. Not only do our impulsive, irrational brains make it difficult to think clearly, but experts also argue that trying to rein in the chaos and think straight is a losing battle due to how our brains naturally operate. They explain that the brain is like a circuit board that records your lifetime of experiences. And these experiences are largely immutable because A, they're so deeply imprinted, and B, any time you invest in trying to figure them out only reinforces them. Complicating matters, your unconscious brain processes 11 million bits of information per second, compared with a mere 40 bits per second that your conscious brain processes, making it nearly impossible to alter your circuit board via rational interventions. Bartlett argues that to find true contentment, you have to stop comparing yourself to other people. He recommends that you disengage from social media platforms and reality TV shows, distance yourself from people who encourage you to compare yourself to others, and center yourself in a smaller, simpler world. For example, instead of spending a Saturday scrolling through pictures on Instagram and thinking about how everyone's having more fun than you are, take a 2-hour break from your phone and go for a walk, spend some time writing, or meet friends for a night out. Stay off your phone during your activity, and when it's over, take a moment to think about how you felt when you were physically engaged in the world or in the company of others, and compare this to how you feel after a day of scrolling through social media. Short form note. In digital minimalism, Cal Newport says you can detach in an uber-connected world by streamlining and simplifying your technology use. First, ask yourself, of all the technology that I'm using, which adds value to my life and which creates clutter? From there, eliminate the technology that falls into the latter category. Finally, decide which are the most important features of each remaining piece of technology and use only those. Bartlett's revelation about what's meaningful. Bartlett says that he used to be addicted to hustle porn, the idea that if you work yourself to the bone, you can have the same world of riches that social media influencers appear to have. But he started questioning the idea when, in 2016, he found his best friend and business partner, Dominic, drunk and passed out at 3 a.m. in the mansion they shared. Not long after Bartlett carried his friend's limp body to bed, he found Dominic awake and naked in the wine-stained bed where he'd deposited him, with a new uncorked bottle in hand. Bartlett says that in the days that followed, he watched his close friend unravel, and he realized that he'd missed signs that his friend, a functional alcoholic, was in deep trouble. Trying to be tough even as he struggled, Dominic had never divulged his suffering, and Bartlett blamed himself for failing to create conditions that would have allowed his friend to be vulnerable. It wasn't until Dominic got sober that Bartlett learned his closest friend had been living with severe anxiety and depression. Bartlett felt guilty that he'd never checked in with his friend in a way that would have encouraged him to share his struggles. The episode led Bartlett to reevaluate his priorities and think about what truly mattered to him, having meaningful emotional connections and balance in his life. Short form note: Bartlett doesn't explicitly connect hustle porn to his and Dominic's failure to emotionally connect in meaningful ways, but it's implied. Some say that hustle porn is a toxic phenomenon that can take a serious toll on your physical and mental health, preventing you from connecting with others and experiencing empathy. Reddit founder Alexis Ohanian says that he and his wife Serena Williams spent years pushing themselves and putting their well-being on hold. Though their poor sleeping and eating habits didn't have any long-term effects, these habits can put hustle porners at risk of cardiovascular problems, diabetes, depression, and anxiety. He recommends balancing your work with time with loved ones and prioritizing sleep. Strive for your goals, not other people's goals. Bartlett says you should ignore the external brainwashing that comes from social media and television and instead turn inward to figure out what's meaningful to you. He argues that striving to achieve your own goals brings a sense of calm and contentment, even though pursuing your dreams inevitably comes with failure and rejection. In contrast, achieving the goals society says you should, like getting rich and famous, makes you feel lost and chaotic. This is because once you achieve society's goals, you have nothing left to strive for, and the achievement doesn't have deep meaning. Bartlett recommends that you identify your goals by thinking about the one thing in life you want and value above all else, the thing you'd sacrifice everything for. Ask yourself why this is important to you. Once you know what it is and why it's crucial to your happiness, every decision you make should drive you toward that goal. If you don't, you'll get distracted, lose energy and focus, and diminish your chances of achieving your dream and ultimately finding fulfillment. Short form note: in First Things First, Stephen R. Covey bolsters Bartlett's argument that striving to achieve goals that mean something to you gives you a greater sense of contentment. He argues that your goals must nurture balance in your life, or you risk ultimately becoming disillusioned and wary of the goal-setting process. This is because when you achieve a goal that doesn't include things that are actually important, like time with your family and friends, and a quality of life that comes with an even work-life balance, you're confronted with the stark negative reality of what you sacrificed to get there. Bartlett's revelation about life's goals. At age 18, Bartlett was a poor university dropout whose mother had disowned him for leaving school. He journaled that his big life goals were to be a tech millionaire by age 25, own a Range Rover, have a long-term relationship, and have a better body. He says he thought that being a sexy millionaire would make him happy. But at the pinnacle of Bartlett's career, when he headed a public company worth $200 million, frequently traveled the world, and lived in luxury, Bartlett realized that he felt no happier than he had when he had nothing. Bartlett describes this realization as a rug being pulled out from under him. He'd fallen victim to warped media narratives and social media falsehoods. He'd believed their lies, that if he just worked hard enough and achieved a specific set of goals, happiness was his to keep. It was only after he found this external success that he discovered happiness comes from within. Short form note: Bartlett says that you'll find happiness when you pursue the goals that matter to you. Some experts argue that rather than focusing on finding happiness, people should focus on being kind toward others, which will naturally bring happiness. They argue that kindness fuels the feel-good brain chemicals dopamine, oxytocin, and serotonin, which you'll feel when you engage in selfless acts, such as bringing a meal to a friend who's grieving or picking up groceries for a housebound elderly person. Know your motivations. To feel fulfilled and find success, it's not enough to know what you're pursuing. You must also understand why you're pursuing your goals. Bartlett says we're not as attuned as we should be to this question of why, because internet and social media algorithms have distorted our understanding of what should motivate us. They've done this by bombarding us with, and selling as the ideal dream, images of influencers as amazing people leading extraordinary lives. This effectively normalizes the flawed idea that to be happy, we have to do whatever it takes to be just like them. For example, Instagram's algorithm will, by design, show your content to more people if it fits into one of the app's predetermined popular categories. As a result, a photo of a woman in a swimsuit will be shown to more users than a picture of you examining a mushroom. How this tricks you is that if you post both of these photos, one will get considerably more likes than the other, which warps your perspective of what other people find pleasing or acceptable. Short form note: Bartlett's concerns about the internet, social media, and algorithms brainwashing us are bolstered by the bill of goods we've been sold by influencers who fake their success. There are documented cases of influencers faking private jet rides and posing in local mansions, while pretending they are on exotic and expensive vacations. Some argue that all you need to be a social media influencer is a credit card, that and several thousand bot followers. Bartlett says that truly successful people, those who experience consistent contentment, are motivated by internal factors and doing things that they genuinely enjoy. This is because you feel most fulfilled when you genuinely care about the dream you're chasing and feel you have control over the way you pursue it. He cites research that finds that people who pursue things that bring them authentic joy experience more lasting contentment than those who chase things that don't. People lose interest in activities they love when they're provided financial incentives to do them, because the incentive negatively alters their motivation to do the thing they love. Short form note: some experts say that following your internal passions can put you on a path to success, but only if you have the right expectations. For example, many people assume that when you're passionate about something, the chips will miraculously fall into place and lead you to instant fame and fortune. But a more realistic view is that passion teaches you resilience by helping you slog through difficult times on what's often a long, bumpy road to success. In contrast, Bartlett argues that people who are motivated by external factors, like wanting money or avoiding negative consequences, typically feel unfulfilled and are unsuccessful as a result. He says that when you pursue goals that aren't genuinely yours, you risk becoming disengaged and stagnating, or burning out, because you're wasting time doing things you don't really care about. He says the less true you are to yourself and the more you ignore what truly matters to you, the more unmotivated, unhappy, and regretful you ultimately feel. Short form note: Bartlett cites the work of an expert on dying who says that people entering their final stages of life report regret at having lived lives that others wanted them to live, instead of being true to their own desires. In The Untethered Soul, Michael Singer offers a different take, arguing that you don't have to wait until your final days to learn important lessons about life. Death can teach you how to live differently and better now. He says that death teaches you to pay attention to the small stuff, worry less about minor problems, let go of grudges, be present when you're with the people you love, and say yes to life's many experiences. Bartlett's revelation about motivations. When Bartlett was 27 and at the height of his career, he quit his job as the millionaire head of Social Chain. He said this decision mystified most people around him, but made complete sense to him. He says he quit Social Chain for the same reason he quit university. He always quits when things suck, when he knows he can't make them suck less, or when the effort to make them suck less isn't worth whatever the payoff might be for making them better. He says that quitting under these conditions has always put him on the road to greater contentment, and it gives him the feeling of doing right by himself. Short form note: in The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F, Mark Manson counters Bartlett's idea that quitting is the answer when things suck, arguing that a culture of toxic positivity and happiness has deluded people into thinking that they're entitled to feel good all the time. When people expect to always feel good, they vigorously avoid pain, but pain is an unavoidable part of life. So you should accept that sometimes things won't go well and you'll feel bad, and use this reality as fuel for improvement. New section. Part 2. Bartlett's Best Practices for Pursuing Happiness and Success. We've discussed Bartlett's arguments about how social forces have warped our sense of ourselves and our goals, and how reclaiming your true self and your own goals will increase your levels of contentment and feelings of success. Next, we'll look at Bartlett's best practices for pursuing happiness and success. Recommendation 1. Be consistent. Bartlett argues that consistently taking steps to achieve your goals is the underacknowledged and underrated key to success. The more time and energy you regularly put into doing things that will help you reach your dreams, even if the steps you take are small, the more growth, momentum, and progress you'll experience. Bartlett credits consistency over time as the factor that enabled him to build a global business at age 21, get in the best shape in his life, and have millions in the bank. He also says it was the key to his hitting the million-follower mark on social media, explaining that with each post he made and each follower he gained over a 5-year period, he learned, grew, and moved steadily closer to the 6-figure number. Short-form note: Bartlett points to his social media numbers and financial status as markers of his success, after stating earlier that the internet, social media, and algorithms are responsible for brainwashing us into believing that these are important goals that will bring us happiness and success. Bartlett states that people often don't want to take small steps toward their goals for 2 reasons. 1. They don't see immediate results. 2. They believe society's false narrative that success arises from one moment of greatness. For example, the media often focuses on Olympic gold medalists' moments of victory, not the hours, months, and years of practice that got them there. Short-form note: experts recommend crafting goals using the SMART acronym. Goals should be specific, meaningful, achievable, realistic, and trackable. For example, setting the goal, "I want to do 20 push-ups every day to get stronger," is more specific, realistic, trackable, and achievable than "I want to get in shape this year." Recommendation 2. Make decisions rationally, not emotionally. Bartlett argues that you should make difficult decisions and react to crises from a place of calm analysis, not panic. Responding to challenging situations from a clear, rational headspace will land you in a more contented space in the long run than if you react from a place of instability, which will only fuel more instability and unhappiness. He says that the only thing you control in the heat of challenging moments is how you react to them, not how they arose or what their outcomes will be. So you shouldn't waste time getting distracted by your emotions or how you feel about the situation. Short-form note: to respond to crises from a place of calm, not panic, you can try a strategy from Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now to disconnect from your emotions. Use cues from your body, like clenched fists or a tight jaw, to notice anger you may feel. Then observe the thoughts at the root of that anger. The mere act of observing your emotion from a detached place, rather than simply being absorbed by feeling it, separates you from it. When you have to make a difficult decision and feel yourself reacting emotionally, Bartlett says you should stop, take a breath, check in with friends to process the situation, then take the time you need to make your decision from a place of calm. If you find yourself in a crisis, you'll have less time to process information, so you should accept that you're dealing with a bad situation, quickly take action so you don't drown in a state of uncertainty about why it's happening or what might come next, stay calm and positive, proactively gather information, and assemble a plan to address the issue at hand. Remind yourself that you've successfully navigated difficult situations in your life before and will do so again this time. Principle illustrated. In 2015, as Bartlett drove to a company paintball retreat in the countryside, he learned that his company's email had been hacked and a slew of offensive emails had gone out to his top clients. Calls canceling contracts poured in. Despite the natural inclination to panic, Bartlett says he remained calm and went into problem-solving mode to secure his compromised server. When he arrived at the retreat, he stepped out of his car and, in a confident, unemotional tone, informed his employees that he needed them to join him back at the office to address the problem at hand. Bartlett says that in the days that followed, his company lost 80% of their clients, but he never caved to despair, pessimism, or chaos, because that only feeds problems. He says that staying calm and being proactive, optimistic, and focused helped elevate his employees' spirits. As a result, they regrouped, bounced back, and not long after signed a multi-million-pound deal that secured the company's future for many years. Had Bartlett given in to panic, the company likely wouldn't have survived and succeeded. Short-form note: psychologists agree with Bartlett's assessment that when you're in crisis, you should accept your circumstances and act rationally and quickly. They further assert that typical human reaction to a crisis is to enter a state of fear, negativity, and panic that's tied to hardwired survival instincts. This can be unhelpful because today's dangers differ from the simple and immediate threats of primitive times, like wild animals chasing you. To counter your fear, negativity, and panic, try confronting them by embracing an opportunity psychology. Stay positive and forward-thinking, be open to all solutions, keep moving forward no matter what, and if you're leading a team, be optimistic, decisive, and calm. Recommendation 3. Take responsibility. Bartlett asserts that you'll experience greater contentment and success when you take control of your emotions, accept responsibility for problems you face, and acknowledge your weaknesses and failures. He says that the more control you feel you have in life, the more confident you are in your ability to navigate the challenges you face, and the more content, healthy, and independent you feel. In contrast, people who blame and get angry at others for their problems are unnecessary hostages to their emotions and factors that they think are outside of their control, but often are not. The less control you feel you have in life, the more unhappy, helpless, and victimized you feel, because it seems as if outcomes are the luck of the draw and you unfairly drew the short straw. Principle illustrated. Bartlett says he had an employee who continually complained to him about a client who regularly failed to pay his bills on time. When he reviewed this employee's process for collecting payments, however, Bartlett discovered that he hadn't posted due dates on his invoices. They reformatted the invoices together to include a due date, and 3 months later his employee reported that the client hadn't paid late since. By jumping to the conclusion that the client was to blame, Bartlett's employee gave up control of the situation. When he stopped pointing his finger and looked at his own practices, he took back control over the situation. Refuse to be a victim. In the 10X rule, Grant Cardone says that people who blame others, half the population, are unsuccessful because they're whiners and victims who are so busy making excuses that they can't take action. He says that victims give their control to others and feel powerless to change anything, so never feel in control or confident in themselves. Cardone says you can't control everything, but you can control how you respond to things, and claiming control will allow you to act and improve your situation. Cardone says you can take control and responsibility in your life by thinking about ways to minimize and prevent problems from recurring, which will help you avoid getting sucked into victim thinking. For example, if someone rear-ends your car, you have a valid reason to be upset, but avoiding the victim role is more important than venting. So you should focus on figuring out how to avoid being rear-ended again. For example, take a less heavily trafficked route next time, leave yourself more time to get to your destination, and make sure you're paying attention while you're driving. Recommendation 4. Challenge yourself to push past labels. Bartlett argues that when we allow labels to define us, we're held back from being our true selves and achieving our goals, which prevents us from feeling contentment in our lives. He says that science shows that the longer you accept a negative label as something that defines you, the more likely you are to behave in ways that prove your self-categorization to be accurate. In other words, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Bartlett asserts that you should reject labels, good and bad, and focus on the fact that you are, first and foremost, a human being. You are not your job, your accomplishments, or your future dreams. This starts with pushing yourself out of your comfort zone and proving to yourself that you are more than any simplistic label. Principle illustrated. When Bartlett was 18, he met a 26-year-old man at a hip-hop club who was short, unsure of himself, and poorly dressed. The man repeatedly asked Bartlett for work. Despite his appearance and demeanor, and unaware that the man lived with his mother and spent most days playing video games, Bartlett took a chance and hired him as his marketing director. In the 6 years that followed, this man played an integral role in helping Bartlett build one of the most powerful social media companies in the industry. Then he went on to run his own successful business. Bartlett says that the man's repeated outreach to him after they first met, his persistence in seeking a job from Bartlett, reflected his refusal to be defined or held back by the kind of label that many might assign to someone living in his circumstances, slovenly, lazy, and so on. Short-form note. The Myers-Briggs personality test, one of the most popular personality classification tools, is neither rooted in nor validated by science. The mother-daughter team that created the test had no training in psychology, psychiatry, or testing, and no experience in labs or academic institutions. They developed the test at home because women in the 1900s lacked access to universities. Psychologists say it's problematic to rely so heavily on a classification tool that lacks scientific foundation. This is because when people are given a personality label that's accepted as general truth, they believe it's true even when their behavior doesn't fit it. Bartlett states you can cultivate a meaningful, label-free belief in yourself by recognizing that you're the product of your environment and circumstances, and that those things may have shaped you, but they are not you. You can support this recognition by gathering evidence that proves you're different from, and more than, those experiences. Gather this evidence by taking on challenges that A, push you out of your comfort zone, and B, force you to redefine who you think you are and what you're capable of. Bartlett acknowledges that taking on new challenges can be difficult because nobody likes uncertainty or feeling uncomfortable, but he argues that you must align your intention with action to grow and reach your goals. He asserts that successful people directly confront the uncertainty that comes with taking on new challenges. They do this by calculating the risk of potential bad outcomes and accepting that no outcome will be perfect, and not allowing their emotions to sideline them. There's no perfect decision or choice, so overthinking and procrastinating when you're dealing with uncertainty is unhelpful and results in missed opportunities. Directly facing uncertainty, the space between your known unhappy situation and your unknown potentially happy one, opens the doors to opportunities for greater contentment. Bartlett argues that if deep-seated issues prevent you from taking concrete steps to pursue your dreams, you should go to therapy to illuminate and address the roots of thinking and behavior that are getting in your way. Navigate challenges and uncertainty. In Girl, Stop Apologizing, Rachel Hollis offers a different way to tackle fear and self-limiting beliefs that can hold you back. Recognize that everyone struggles when they start new difficult things. She says that when you take on a new challenge, you should be willing to be bad at it for a long time, rather than worrying about being innately good at it from the get-go, because expecting instant success will sabotage your progress. If you find it difficult to give yourself permission to be bad at new things, try these two strategies for confronting your demons and getting support to vanquish them. Let yourself be good enough instead of perfect. To do this, identify and acknowledge the specific fear that's triggering you. For example, I'm worried that people will think I'm stupid, or I'm afraid that I won't be able to perform in the moment. Experts say the assumption underlying these fears is often that if they actually play out, you won't be able to recover. But you only need to talk to people who have survived and learned from their failures to counter that assumption. Reach out and connect with someone. Part of the challenge of doing something new is feeling like you're all alone. Reaching out to others and asking them for guidance and insight can make you feel less isolated and help you think through different ways to approach your situation that you hadn't considered. Recommendation 5. Protect your time. Bartlett argues that to live a truly fulfilled life, you have to pay attention to how little time you have on earth, know your dreams and goals, and devote as much of your time and energy as possible to achieving them. He asserts that time is the most precious resource that exists. It's the key to your well-being because it gives you the freedom to invest in things that matter to you. Only you can control your time, and you should factor that reality into every decision you make and every action you take, because every choice either pushes you toward or away from your goals. Bartlett says you should make every decision with the urgency you'd have if a timer were constantly in front of your face and you were watching the remaining minutes of your life on Earth tick away. Short form note. Unlike Bartlett, many experts contend that fulfillment comes when you practice mindfulness, the benefits of which include greater feelings of self-control, improved mental clarity, and an increased ability to relate to yourself and others with kindness, acceptance, and compassion. Bartlett says that even as he wrote his book, competing interests like wanting to watch football or go to McDonald's to get a Big Mac flooded his head. But he ignored both because taking time to do these things would mean he'd have less time to pursue the bigger goal that's part of the legacy he wants to leave behind, writing the book. Short form note. The value of time differs from one culture to another. For example, in America, a production-oriented society, time is money, a scarce resource, so efficiency is valued. In contrast, people from Spain and Italy are more concerned with the present moment than schedules and punctuality. And Japanese culture is focused less on how long things take and more on divvying up time in ways that adhere to priorities such as properness, courtesy, and tradition. Recommendation 6. Practice gratitude. Bartlett says you can improve your health and well-being, which can increase your feelings of contentment and success, by regularly practicing gratitude. He cites psychologist Martin Seligman, asserting that noticing positive things throughout the day makes you feel like you're getting gifts all day long. In addition, research finds that practicing gratitude regularly releases the feel-good hormone dopamine and can counter the negative effects of anxiety. Bartlett says that we often forget to express gratitude because we're more focused on feeling like we're not good enough or not doing well enough in relation to other people. However, for gratitude to become integrated into your life and improve your well-being, you must make a conscious effort to practice regularly. Bartlett recommends journaling about your gratitude on a daily basis. He journals twice a day, just before bed and when he wakes up. He writes down things he appreciates, like his dog or his niece. He says that engaging in the practice makes him realize how special specific things in his life are, and that the process as a whole has made him more optimistic. Short-form note. Psychologists back Bartlett's argument that regularly practicing gratitude improves your health and well-being, saying cultivating positive emotions on a regular basis rewires your brain by growing new connections that facilitate your ability to tap into these emotions in the future. So the process of swapping out negative emotions, such as anger or sadness, for positive ones, such as awe or gratitude, becomes easier and quicker the more you do it. A final word on love. As we mentioned earlier in the guide, Bartlett doesn't go into great detail about how to obtain love. He does believe that love is in the eye of the beholder, meaning that there's no single universal definition of what it is or what it means, and that we should conceptualize love in a more nuanced way than we do. He argues that there's no way to develop a universal definition of love because every human being experiences and feels things differently. For example, Bartlett says that his mother and father's often volatile relationship taught him that love and marriage are a prison you can't escape from. And although he's been in relationships, Bartlett says he remains unconvinced that he'll ever fully escape the deep-seated feeling that love is a form of entrapment. Bartlett argues that there's no single universal definition of love, but in The Road Less Traveled, M. Scott Peck contends that genuine love is 5 specific things. An intentional action that you take to support another person's growth and well-being, whether or not you feel a sensation of love for them. A choice you make to be with someone, even as you know that you're free not to be with them. An extension of the self that centers on spiritual growth, not an annihilation of the self. A conscious, deliberate effort that leads to growth. An entity that respects and honors the separation of the self and the other, and requires each party to fully and genuinely accept the other's individuality.